Hi, welcome. I'm Mary Jo Feely, and I'm glad that you are joining me for another Crystal Q&A. I am the owner of Fourth Dimension Healing in Stillwater, Minnesota, which is where I offer crystalline energy healing, mentoring, Reiki classes, as well as light language healing sessions. I am also the director of the Center for Crystalline Healing Studies, which is my online school. And through my school, I offer a variety of courses in energy healing, Reiki, crystal healing, as well as having free ebooks and some free mini courses. So if you're curious about some of what I offer, please take a look at the links below. Additionally, at my school, I also have something known as community. And community is a private, dedicated platform where we can connect with each other, ask questions, learn from each other. And all of that is accessible with free sign up. So go ahead and check it out. I am also the host of the Ask, Learn, Heal podcast, where I offer podcast episodes on self care, energy healing, crystal healing, and I offer guided meditations with each of my episodes so that you can take the context of what you've been learning and integrate it within your own lived experience so that you are really able to not only learn about a particular topic, but also bring that into your own personal life for body, mind, spirit healing. Well, if you're new to these crystal Q&As that I offer, um, please feel free to always go out to my website. The links are for all these things are below this video. And you can go ahead and submit questions to me, and then I gather those questions together, gather some rocks together, and then present the questions to you so that you can learn more about how to work with gemstones and crystals to support your healing. Now, in May, because we didn't have a crystal Q&A in June, in May, some glitch happened technologically, and the second half of the Q&A did not record. So I'm just going to pick up right where I left off, and then I'm going to take a look at a few other questions as well. So in May, we were talking about um, working with gemstones and crystals to work specifically with each of the chakras. And this question really builds upon that. And the question is, what stones are best to balance the aura? So the aura is another word for the energy field or the biofield, that electromagnetic area around us that has layers, just like we have chakras, we have layers. And so when it comes to healing the aura, we may or may not be aware of exactly what part of our biofield is out of sync, so to speak. And what the beauty is, we don't need to know that. What we are able to do is work with the gemstones and crystals to be able to support the healing that needs to take place. If you are not familiar with the system of elements that I work with, which is earth, fire, water, wind, and storm, I would really encourage you to take a look at some of the other videos that I talk about that. And I also have podcasts about that as well. And speaking of the podcast, you can access those two ways. One is you can go out to my Ask, Learn, Heal website, and then you can access all of my podcast there. And also, YouTube just recently rolled out so that all of my podcasts also sync right up to the podcast tab on my YouTube channel. So it could be that when you're done with this video, something sparks an interest and you just jump right over to my podcast tab and listen through that as well. Um, so, anyway, when we are working with these various stones, I think it's going to be really helpful for us to be aware that we are going to be working with the storm element. In my experience, that's really what we're doing when we're working specifically in the aura. Because again, we have layers, those layers are all interconnected. And ultimately, our physical body and our energy body, including our energy field and all the chakras, it's really all integrated anyway. It's just that we have difficulty obviously seeing our energy field, so we kind of forget about it. So when working with these stones, I wanted to show you some. They all resonate with storm, and storm is transformational. Yes. It can show up in kind of clear house. Yes. And storm also is really great at connecting earth and heaven energies, which is what we're looking for when we're working with clearing and balancing the biofield. So this first one I want to show you is a piece of zebra calcite. So zebra calcite, even though it's a calcite and calcites tend to be very fiery, it also has a lot of layers to it, which means it's going to be really effective when we're working with the layers of the energy field. We don't have to, like I said, necessarily know what is amiss. We can simply set the intention that we would invite the healing that needs to happen to support the rebalancing and the clearing and the revitalizing of the energy field, that it take place and that the zebra um, calcite support that work. So holding this, for example, during a meditation, resting it on any part of your body could be really helpful when you're working with that particular stone or really any of the stones for clearing the energy field. Here's another one, and I've talked about this one before too. This is Shiva Lingam, and it might have actually been in May. I'm just not remembering. I do have several videos about that. Um, Shiva again connects earth and heaven, and that's the intent. The intent is to get that earth connection balanced because we are earth beings, right? We are living on this planet. And also this ability to connect with that higher guidance that comes down through the spirit realms. When we can do that, that ripples out and helps to shift and clear some of those bogged down energies that um, are showing up in our aura. Now, we may have, let's say, maybe we have a lot of grief. Maybe some things happen and we're carrying a lot of grief. That's going to show up in part of our energy field. It might also physically show up. Maybe we're really having experienced a lot of grief and we can't eat at all. We feel like we have no appetite whatsoever. That's an example where grief is showing up not only in that energy field, but also it's showing up in this case. You notice I'm holding my abdomen. That could very likely be showing up in that third chakra, or maybe we're heartbroken, it's showing up in that fourth chakra. But in this case, we're talking the aura, which is where we can work with a stone like Shiva that's going to bring in that balancing and help us to naturally shift and clear and rebalance. Here's another example of a crystal that connects with earth and heaven. This is red-capped amethyst. I've talked about this before. The hematite, the iron ore in the red-capped amethyst is very anchoring and grounding. So if we're working with it, this part's going to be connecting down with the earth, and this lighter, more translucent, maybe purple, maybe white, maybe lavender is going to be connecting up with the heavens. When we're holding it, it really doesn't matter, in my experience, how we hold it. You may get a sense that you want to hold it one way or the other. Having this within your energy field is sufficient. When we think about the energy field, it's going to go out typically several feet around us. Sometimes it might open up much bigger if we're out in nature. Sometimes we might pull it in if we have to go into, let's say, a store that we don't like to go into, but we have to go into. We might pull that in a little bit. But when we're working with a gemstone or crystal, it can be somewhere within about, let's say, 3 feet, 4 feet of our physical body, and it's going to be within our energy field. It's a great way to be able to have that stone connect up with or engage with our energy field. That's why you've heard me maybe talk about slipping a stone inside your pillowcase at night with the intention that while you rest, that the properties are going to engage and connect with your energy field and will help support the healing. So that's red-capped amethyst. I have a couple of examples of blue kyanite. Blue kyanite is a wonderful stone that balances all the chakras. In this particular situation or case, we're talking specifically about how to clear the energy field. And this can bring in not only a real connecting transformational energy, but it does so very, very gently. So we do not need to be the one in the rock tumbler when we're working with healing. Sometimes we might feel that way, but blue kyanite is an example of a stone that is very gentle and calming and very subtle in nurturing as it does its work within our energy field. The final stone I wanted to just show you as an example of what we can work with to really balance, what was the question? Yeah, balance the aura, is working with K2. And again, I have other videos. K2 connects 2 points in our energy system. They are above our head, so it's not the crown chakra. They are above our head and below our feet. So it's not the root chakra, it's below our feet. And it connects these 2 points and then really strengthens the entire aura. That entire electromagnetic biofield around us is strengthened and held really, really solid. So think of it this way. Maybe you're going through a stressful time. It can be fun stress. It can be really difficult stress. Um, maybe you're super busy at work. Maybe you're dealing with a family member who's got a lot of health issues. Something's going on, and you're feeling pulled in a lot of different directions. Maybe you're not eating as well. Maybe you're just really kind of all over the place. Working with something like K2 that has a super strong ability to hold a strong energy field helps us to be able to maintain healthy energetic boundaries so that we're showing up and functioning, but we're not over functioning and we're not under functioning. Okay. It also helps us when that storm has passed, that we rebound and rebalance fairly quickly. Because I'm sure we all have experiences where something really important and busy was going on, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, by the time that was over, as soon as it was done, we got sick, right? We got the migraine, we got a cold, uh, we didn't feel well, we were totally depleted. K2 is an example of a stone that can help support that balancing of that aura and maintaining that strong strength of the energy field so that we're less likely to have that happen. Okay. So I hope that answered that question. That was, as I mentioned, a wrap up or a follow up from last time. Now, this also was the other question we didn't get a chance to hear as a group. I was given a piece of Green Aventurine and Charoite, which is better for stress. Well, that's fun since I just was talking about stress with the last question. So when we're experiencing stress, it's going to show up in different ways. Maybe stress is causing us not to be able to sleep. Maybe stress is causing us to eat too much. Maybe stress is um, causing us to be get a sense of being disconnected emotionally or mentally. So, however stress is showing up, it's going to influence which gemstone or crystal you will want to work with. And know that if you don't know the properties, that's still okay. And as you learn properties, then you begin to kind of tease out which one might be more suited for you at that time. So if we start with green aventurine, which is a form of quartz, the cryptocrystalline quartz, which means at a microscopic level, you will find the same crystalline structure as we do here. For example, I have a piece of clear quartz. Very clear to see all the different facets, the way those molecules all stack up in a hexagonal form. So here is a form that's we're only going to see that microscopically. This particular stone resonates with earth. So it's got this nurturing, grounding quality. It also resonates with water. So it's got some soothing, calming energies as well. So if that's the sort of um, energy, or that's the sort of gift, those healing properties of this particular stone that would be a good match for the kind of way I'm experiencing stress, I would say that the green aventurine could be really well, could work really well. If you're so stressed that you really have no idea where you are, where your feet are, you're just so busy and you're just moving from place to place and you're forgetting to eat and you're forgetting to rest, you need to get a little bit more grounded. And this could be a nice nurturing way to do that. Now, charoite, on the other hand, is a wind element stone. So wind is going to be working up in that sixth and seventh chakra. So if you're finding you're stressed and you're scattered and you're not remembering things and you can't sleep, those tend to be imbalances within the sixth and seventh chakra. So if that's how you're experiencing stress, then I would say working in this case with Charoite could be really helpful. Now, what if you only have Charoite, right? And yet you're really having trouble staying grounded? That's okay. You invite the Charoite to bring balance into these upper chakras and invite it to drop into your heart. That will be enough. That will be sufficient. Because once you get clarity here and drop it into your heart, you begin to start noticing, oh, I forgot to eat. Oh, I can actually make these 3 phone calls with my feet up as I rest. So it's a way to bring a little bit more clarity to the bigger picture of what's going on with stress. And again, if you maybe don't have either of those stones, let's say you have a piece of clear quartz, then you work with the clear quartz with the intention that you are being very, very mindful of focusing on bringing that stress level down. And the properties of clear quartz in this case can be really helpful. Okay. Now I have another question here. This is a new question. What is the best way to combine crystals with meditation? Okay. So I get a sense from this question that this is specifically asking when a person has some form of meditation practice. That's different than I'm going to hold this Charoite. I'm going to place it in my hand. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to tune into that Charoite. I'm going to spend some time noticing its properties, noticing how it feels, noticing any sense of a message or clarity or insights that kind of present as I'm working with that. Because doing that with the stone is, in a way, meditating with the stone, but I don't think that's what this question's asking. I think this question's saying, I have a meditation practice, and how do I bring a crystal into it? So, your meditation practice is going to look unique to you. There are about as many ways to meditate as there are meditators on the planet. So, know how it is that you meditate. Through meditation, do you sit outside next to a tree and listen to the birds? Do you have a formal meditation practice where you close your eyes and focus on your breath? Is your meditation practice about sending out and receiving back grace, healing, forgiveness, loving kindness? That is going to kind of that's going to be the framework within which you now enter into with a stone. So when I thought about what stone or crystal could I bring that would bring some clarity to this question, what I found myself coming back to over and over again is if you want to combine crystals with meditation, I think it would be really helpful, especially at the beginning, if you were to work with gemstones and crystals that resonate with the wind element, which is specifically brow and crown, or the storm element, which is going to be all the chakras and yet really connects with those higher planes as well. So, with that said, I brought optical calcite. You can see this. You can see my finger right through it. It's very translucent. It's double refractive. So, like when I hold it over this question, I can actually see 2 sentences. It just reflects a couple times. Um, this being calcite is fire, and it's also very high frequency. I would say it's working off the crown chakra. We're up in those transpersonal or off body chakras way up at the top of our head. I would recommend that you place it in one of your hands. Don't overthink which hand, whichever one feels right to you. Or it could be that maybe you're going to set it in your lap, or you're going to set it next to you, or you're going to maybe you have a little table, a little prayer table, or a little shrine, or a little altar. Maybe that's where you want to keep it. Have it somewhere within about 3 feet of your physical body so it's engaging in your energy field, or hold it and drop into your meditation with the intention that the properties of the crystal are going to support your meditation practice. and then let it go. Don't overthink what your experience is going to be like. You're developing a relationship in a new way with a particular crystal. I have a couple of gemstones and crystals that are on one of my little prayer tables, and I don't hold them during my meditations. However, they are within my energy field and they support the meditation practice. And I'm not overthinking it. They're simply part of how I gather and show up for meditation. So I would encourage you to take a look at the gemstones and crystals that you may have. Um, let's say, let's say it's about this size as the Green Aventurine, but let's say it's a piece of quartz, a little tumbled piece of quartz. Work with that. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. I would say that yes, we can find certain stones really resonate super high up in the energy field. So those might be the stone that we want to work with, and it doesn't have to be. So don't like beat yourself up and go, oh my gosh, I don't have any stones that resonate with what Mary Jo says is wind element or storm element. Now I can't do this. It's not, it doesn't work that way. Set the intention and go with it, if that makes sense. And then notice how does it inform your meditation practice over time? Okay. Notice, are you getting more clarity? Are you getting up from that meditation practice and walking into life? And are you holding more of a centeredness than you did before? Just make note of it. Perhaps you want to have a notebook or a journal dedicated to your work with crystals and gemstones so that you can make note of some of these nuances. When I do that, I actually have a page for each type of crystal or gemstone I work with so that I can add things. Maybe I haven't worked with Green Aventurine for a while, and now I just had this new insight or something new came to me. I'll find that page and I'll jot that down so I don't forget. So that's that question. Oh, this is a good question, and it kind of follows up with what we've been talking about. It says, can you please talk more about intention? Just what exactly does this mean, and how do I know if I'm doing it right? So there is no right or wrong way to set an intention, but I do think that there can be some effective ways and some that are not quite so effective. And whether you want to call that right or wrong, you can, but I don't think it's quite that black and white. When we decide to get our ego in the way is when we start getting into trouble. If we allow ourselves the grace to say, you know what, there's an inner healer inside of me that knows what I need, that knows how to bring the healing into my life, and I'm opening up to that inner healer, that's where the intention comes from. So take a moment before you decide to set an intention of what that intention is going to be. So let's go back to the optical calcite and the meditation. It can be as simple as placing the stone in your hand or next to you during a meditation and simply stating, and may I benefit and may all beings benefit from any insights and any healing and clarity that I receive through the stone. That's it. Okay. We want to offer it to ourselves and all beings. I think that's really important because then we're not just holding it to ourselves, we're spilling it out into the world. And let's face it, we need a lot of prayers, right? We need a lot of love going out. And so it starts with us and then we ripple it out. So keep your intentions simple, don't overthink them, and don't have an agenda. Here's another example of probably not the most helpful intention. I set the intention that by holding this stone, I am going to be able to understand if I'm supposed to take that new job during this meditation. Right. Boy, I had sure a lot of these need to happen kind of statements. And that's, of course, a gross exaggeration. And yet, boy, we do that all the time, right? We kind of have these expectations about how we think things should show up. And then when they don't, we go, oh, well, that didn't work. Well, it's not about the rock working or not. It's about allowing ourselves to surrender into that place of healing. Okay. So I hope that answered that question. Certainly, as always, If I kind of muddled it up, just let me know and I will re-clarify. In your opinion, what is the most common misunderstanding about crystal healing? Good question. I actually have two. My first common misunderstanding, I think, I would say, is that learning crystal healing is hard. It's not overly complicated, and we can definitely make it overcomplicated. And there's a place to begin. I mean, if you think about how we learn to read, or if you've ever helped a child read, you're pretty sure they're never going to get that what an A and a B and a C is, right? And yet they do, and we eventually are able to read. So let's say we're going to start with Green Aventurine, very common stone, very easily accessible. So what we can do with not overcomplicating the Green Aventurine is simply just start learning about the stone. It's a cryptocrystalline. Wonder what that means. It's about earth element and supports root and heart chakra. Wonder what that means. And we slowly begin to get some knowledge and information about it. And then what happened? What do I notice when I hold it in my hand and I close my eyes for 3 minutes and we set our timer for 3 minutes so we don't have to worry about how long we're sitting? We just bring our awareness to the stone and then we pull our notebook out and we write it down, right? This is how crystal healing starts. When I started with crystal healing, I decided that I wanted to learn about crystal healing and how to work with them. And I worked with 7 stones, one for each chakra. And if you're curious about what that's like, check out my chakra balancing um, mini course. I have a course in digging deeper into crystal healing that introduces you to several stones and how to really kind of get used to how to navigate them. So that's how we start. We start simply. So that's one common misunderstanding. And then the other misunderstanding that kind of makes me a little wild sometimes is that people think there's something magical about gemstones and crystals. And they are as ordinary and as extraordinary as each creature on the planet. So there is an ordinariness to it. There is a simplistic beauty and design within each gemstone and crystal. And it's not about slipping it in the pocket because we heard it was really good to help X, Y, or Z. It is about being in partnership with a gemstone or crystal. It is about trusting that our inner healer is inviting us to explore certain things. One of the things I always find interesting when I'm working with clients is it could be that a particular gemstone or crystal that they're working with during that session, they'll say, you know what? 3 people have talked with me about rose quartz this past week. Well, I would say that rose quartz would be a gemstone or crystal that they could begin to work with and explore, write down on that piece of paper what rose quartz is all about. And that's how they perhaps begin to build their understanding about how to work with gemstones and crystals. So those are the two misunderstandings, that it's complicated and that there's something magical about them. Okay. The final question that we have for today is I'm really new to crystal healing. Can you recommend some good books? Absolutely. I could recommend a lot of books, and I also like to always go back to the basics. One of the basic books that I find extremely helpful is The Crystal Bible by Judy Hall. And I'm not sure if this is showing up backwards or forwards for you. If it's showing up backwards, my apologies. Um, this is a wonderful book that I'm just gonna, let's see, oh, here. I want to see if I can find, oh yeah, this will do. This is an example. This is lapis lazuli. It talks about lapis lazuli, which is a wind element stone, really beautiful for insight. She talks about its attributes. She talks about how we can bring it into a healing, what kind of support it does for us. How do we use it and work with it to be most effective? So she's got these beautiful examples of a wide variety of different gemstones and crystals. She also has several other additions that she's had. And also at the beginning, she always talks about how do stones form? What's the difference between a rock and a crystal and a gemstone and, just dirt, right? And so she has this way of bringing in the geology in a way that's quite helpful. Another thing she has, this is Judy Hall again. Um, this isn't a book, but this is something, is the Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle deck. And if you're familiar with Oracle decks, different cards that have different energies, this one's a real beauty because she talks about a wide variety of stones. Whoops, kind of slippery. And she has a manual that goes with it. Sometimes I have worked with these cards, and if you pull a card and she shows you how to work with it, it gives you an opportunity to connect with the energetics of that particular gemstone or crystal that you may not actually have a real example of in your home. Here's coincidence, lapis lazuli. Look at that. That just showed up twice. Um, so somebody who's listening to this would benefit from lapis. So she's got this, and then the next one's rose quartz. Isn't that fun how that showed up? I'm looking for something that lavender aragonite. Okay, that's a new stone to me. I really don't work with it at all. So if I wanted to work with it, I could work with this particular card with the intention of connecting with the energies of that particular gemstone and that species of stone, if you think of it that way. And then that's how we're able to connect more at that energetic level. So those are a couple. Um, Another one that I found really helpful, and again, I do feel like this is backwards for you. Um, it's Crystal Basics by Nicholas Pearson. He has some really good information about how to work with, again, the geology of it, the various structures. Is it isometric? Is it tetrahedron? Is it um, hexagonal? And how those geometries impact how they share out their healing properties. That's one way. So that's a good book. One of the old standbys is Robert Simmons and Naisha Aznan, the Book of Stones. This is one of the older versions of it. And they take a look at um, the gemstones. Again, they're going to be bringing in some of very similar type of uh, system of elements that I tend to work with. I did study with Naisha for some time, so some of that influence definitely is where I get it from. She also, or they also take a look at not only physically, but how those gemstones and crystals are really kind of drilling in at an emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual level. And I would say Nicholas Pearson does that really well in his Crystal Basics book. And then when it comes to crystal grids, oh my, oh my, oh my, that's a whole nother um, situation to deal with. And they can be very complex. And I am going to show you one of Judy Hall's books. It's one of the better ones that I found. And the cover is going to kind of make you maybe go, yeah, 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 because that's a lot of geometry there. You don't have to worry about that. Perhaps take a look at my free mini course. That could be really helpful. But here's an example of how do we work with grids that appear quite simple but have a complex geometry when we go a little bit deeper. So those are just some that I would say I have found to be really helpful. Again, one book typically leads to two more, and then it leads to two more, and then you're buying a new bookshelf, right? So feel free to reach out to me if you have some other specific questions related to which books that can be helpful. I have another couple over here. I have stone medicine that I work with. This is specifically working with traditional Chinese medicine and gemstones for healing. Hildegard of Bingen, Spiritual Remedies. She was a 12th century mystic and worked a lot with gemstones and crystals for healing. We have Crystal Grid Work by Kiara Fogg, and that is also a really good book. And also Crystal Power, Crystal Healing by Michael Geigner out of Germany. And his is, he does amazing work as well. So um, I think I just opened a can of worms with all of that for sure. So anyway, so that kind of wraps up today. We have kind of revisited some of the questions that kind of got ended up on the cutting room floor, as they would say, in May. We took a look at how to work with crystals to support meditation, as well as dealing with what does intention mean, and then some perhaps introductory type books that might be helpful to you. You can always go to the library. That's what I did a lot. I went to the library, found what I liked. I went to bookstores. Used bookstores are loaded with crystal healing books. And so you can kind of get a sense of what you're looking for. I find particular authors really have a clarity to them. And so I will tend to take in a lot more of their work and others not so much. And so that's okay too. So anyway, so there you have it. Please reach out to me if you have questions. Go ahead and submit questions through my webpage. The link is below this video. Let me know if you have any questions at all. For now, I simply wish you many blessings. Be well.